I'll begin this mini lecture on nutting by reading the poem aloud. To accompany the reading, here are a few images from the English countryside in Cumbria, in the Lake District, where Wordsworth lived. Nutting. It seems a day, one of those heavenly days which cannot die, when forth I sallied from our cottage door, and with a wallet o'er my shoulder slung, a nutting crook in hand, I turned my step toward the distant woods, a figure quaint tricked out in a proud disguise of beggar's weeds, put on for the occasion by advice and exhortation of my frugal dame. Motley accoutrements of power to smile at thorns and brakes and brambles, and in truth more ragged than need was. Among the woods and o'er the pathless rocks I forced my way until at length I came to one dear nook unvisited, where not a broken bough drooped with its withered leaves, ungracious sign of devastation, but the hazels rose, tall and erect, with milk-white clusters hung, a virgin scene. A little while I stood, breathing with such suppression of the heart as joy delights in, and with wise restraint, voluptuous, fearless of a rival, eyed the banquet, or beneath the trees I sat among the flowers, and with the flowers I played, a temper known to those who, after long and weary expectation, have been blessed with sudden happiness beyond all hope. Perhaps it was a bower beneath whose leaves the violets of 5 seasons reappear, and fade unseen by any human eye, where fairy water breaks do murmur on for ever, and I saw the sparkling foam, and with my cheek on one of those green stones that, fleeced with moss, beneath the shady trees, lay round me scattered like a flock of sheep, I heard the murmur and the murmuring sound, in that sweet mood when pleasure loves to pay tribute to ease, and, of its joy secure, the heart luxuriates with indifferent things, wasting its kindness on stocks and stones, and on the vacant air. Then up I rose, and dragged to earth both branch and bough with crash and merciless ravage, and the shady nook of hazels and the green and mossy bower deformed and sullied, patiently gave up their quiet being, and unless I now confound my present feelings with the past, even then, when from the bower I turned away, exulting, rich beyond the wealth of kings, I felt a sense of pain when I beheld the silent trees and the intruding sky. Then, dearest maiden, move along these shades, in gentleness of heart, with gentle hand, touch, for there is a spirit in the woods. My argument in this mini-lecture is simple. Poetic meter will help you to understand the poem and its message. So let's have a look at these lines from Nutting. Tall and erect, with milk-white clusters hung, a virgin scene, a little while I stood, breathing with such suppression of the heart. Now I'm going to read them again, but I'll over-accentuate the stresses in these lines. Tall and erect, with milk-white clusters hung, a virgin scene, a little while I stood, breathing with such suppression of the heart. Here are those lines again, scanned. Tall and erect, with milk-white clusters hung, a virgin scene, a little while I stood, breathing with such suppression of the heart. These lines are in iambic pentameter, but there are a few key substitutions. Tall and breathing are breaks in the pattern of iambs. These are trochees, and here we would say that Wordsworth has performed trochaic substitutions. One thing that these substitutions provide is a clear signal in the poem, and it's no surprise that these are the lines that house the poem's most blatant sexual imagery. Here are the very next lines of the poem. I'll read them. As joy delights in, and with wise restraint, voluptuous, fearless of a rival, eyed the banquet, or beneath the trees I sat among the flowers, and with the flowers I played. And here they are again with the meter scanned. I'll read them again while emphasizing the stresses. As joy delights in, and with wise restraint, voluptuous, fearless of a rival eyed, the banquet or beneath the trees I sat, among the flowers and with the flowers I played. Take note of the word fearless here. Wordsworth inverts his meter, giving us fearless as a trochee, which signals the strength of this word. And later on, see how when he mentions the flowers, he positions these two amphibrachic substitutions in a pretty symmetrical pattern in the line. Reading the metric substitutions or variations is an easy way to get a foothold on what the author is doing in the poem. Even more fun is when an author revises their lines, changing the meter of the poem. Wordsworth does that with Nutting, and I'd like us to compare one small revision in the poem. In 1799, Wordsworth writes these lines, "And o'er the pathless rocks I forced my way until at length I came to one dear nook." In 1836, he revises them. "Through beds of matted fern and tangled thickets, forcing my way, I came to one dear nook." Now, here are those lines again, scanned. "And o'er the pathless rocks I forced my way, until at length I came to one dear nook." And in 1836, we have the following: "Through beds of matted fern and tangled thickets, forcing my way, I came to one dear nook." As if these lines were not aggressive enough in the first version, here we have even more forceful lines. In the first line, we find an amphibrachic substitution with the words "entangled." Here, to tangle up the line, Wordsworth tangles the meter. And then he gives us the trochaic substitution of thickets. When Wordsworth places a trochee at the end of the line, it emphasizes the unstressed beat on which the line ends. We call this a female ending. Yes, the idea that an unstressed or weak ending is a female ending is definitely sexist. This line is about matted ferns and tangled thickets through which the poet forces his way. And when he forces his way, Wordsworth does so with a trochaic substitution. My point in emphasizing the inversions and substitutions in this poem is not to convince you that the poem is hypersexual and masculine. That should be pretty obvious by now. What should also be obvious is that a poem's meter and its subject are generally related, and that if we can't figure out what the subject is, we can usually turn to its meter for some guidance.